Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new or returning subscriber, which a lot of y'all are, nice to see you, nice to have you here. In today's video, I kind of want to talk about a topic that was inspired by SZA's new album, obviously, because so many bops, so many things I feel like that could be said about the album. She's talking about her documentation of growing, per usual. And so today's video is going to be inspired by trying to grow without hating the process. I just love how it depicts and talks about so many different experiences within the process of growing, how it's not always beautiful, but how it's not always easy. Sometimes it just becomes a lot. Being in your 20s, being at any age in life, there's a lot of growing pains. Honestly, something I've learned in the past 2.5 years that I've started like really intensively working on myself. The process of growing is not always going to be fun. A lot of times you're going to want to abandon the ship. A lot of times you're going to want to revert back to old ways. There's duality to it. So for starters, I had an epiphany not so long ago, essentially, that I tend to self-sabotage a lot because I find peace to be really boring. I just really have come to realize in my spiritual journey that finding peace is boring as hell. Like, it is so boring, but not boring because of the fact that like the peace itself is boring, if that makes sense. More so because of the fact that a lot of times when we are younger, we're not able to control the environments that we're in, let alone the people that we have to be surrounded by. I've realized that a lot of the chaos that I was trying to escape in my adolescence has kind of created this negative loop, if you will. I realized that I've worked really hard in my adolescence to escape those toxic environments, to find peace, essentially. A lot of times when I have found the peace from what it was I was escaping, I noticed that I have self-sabotaging ways of finding new ways to either create chaos, to revert back to those old ways, which obviously makes sense. When you've become accustomed to such a chaotic environment, of course you're going to revert back to old ways. It's uncomfortable because you've become so acquainted with it, to be honest. You become so attached to it, and that's all you know. That is your normal. And so a lot of times, there's a good handful of times where I created chaos that just wasn't necessary, to be honest, which I feel like a lot of us do. I just think that a lot of people aren't as aware of it, or if they are, they're not as willing to come forth and express that they were to blame for some of those things. The best example that I think of is in those situations where you hear about people being in relationships for like long periods of time and everything seems good and it's great, and then next thing you know, out of nowhere, one of the people ends up cheating on the other person, or the other person just ends up doing something chaotic to create a divide within the dynamics of the relationship that was essentially perfect or good. I've realized that people tend to get bored of things that they once wanted once they have them because of the fact that they found peace, essentially. Or even in the instance of, I grew out my hair, so in college it was no surprise to anyone. I constantly would talk about it, but I did not like having short hair. I did not like my short hair. I got so many compliments on it and so many other people that enjoyed my hair, but I didn't necessarily like my hair. I didn't feel attractive with short hair, and so I started growing my hair out. As you guys saw, within the last year, I had grew my hair out. It looked nice and healthy, and then I started bleaching it and like doing different things to it, just continuously doing things back to back to back until eventually I became unhappy with my hair and shaved it off because I become bored. I was expecting something to happen for me not to like my hair, whether it was a bad haircut or whether it was for me to damage my hair, and I got tired of waiting around for it and essentially did it myself, and subconsciously, of course. Looking back now, it's like, oh, that's an instance where there's calm, smooth sailing, and I was trying to find ways to spice it up a little bit. I feel like there's a lot of subtle things like that that we do, and we don't tend to really think into them a lot. I feel like a lot of times when we do find peace, we inevitably create chaos. Those of us that came from chaotic environments and relationships, and a lot of times we don't acknowledge it or even really notice it. And that's something that very much makes growing a lot more difficult, having to acknowledge the chaos and situations in which you weren't necessarily the best. There's a good amount of instances, I feel like, just like off the top of my head that I can think of. I chose chaos and created conflict when there really didn't need to be conflict because of the fact that I wasn't willing to either be vulnerable with a person I was talking to, or because of the fact that just didn't have high hopes for something, essentially. A lot of times I've realized my past self was very pessimistic. I would constantly wait for the shoe to drop, pick apart everything, and try and find the negative in things before they were apparent, so that then when the shoe finally did drop, I could be right. I could be justified in having suspicions about what I was thinking in my head, when in all reality, it came to fruition because of the fact that I had premeditated intentions a lot of the times, and I manifested it, to be honest. Yeah, but a lot of y'all ain't ready for that conversation, to be honest. A lot of you guys, I feel like, aren't ready to be as upfront and honest as I'm willing to be right now. So it's okay. It's okay. One step at a time, bestie. But like, if you resonate with that, like, you don't gotta out yourself in the comments or nothing and like expose yourself for how toxic you were or whatever. But like, let me know at some point. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So I mean, kind of makes me think too about this TikTok that I had seen where this person was saying that if you're on a healing journey, but you're not actively acknowledging and admitting to where you're being wrong, then you're not healing. You're just on a journey of narcissism. You're not actually trying to better yourself. You're just trying to manipulate and be narcissistic to people. But that too, I feel like it also goes into another point that I want to make in acknowledging my wrongdoings or instances where I chose conflict and chaos. I am working on also not being so harsh on myself. You can only do better if you know better. A lot of times I'm so mad at myself for not doing things a certain way. And it really boils down to the fact that I just didn't know better. I didn't have good examples in my life to know those things. So I'm really at a spot where I'm trying to find the balance of, taking accountability and acknowledging my wrongdoings, but also not getting so stuck on things I did in my past and letting those things consume me, because hyperfixating on the past does no help whatsoever. At the end of the day, I can't fix the past. I can only work on the present and moving forward into the future. Forgiving my younger self for not knowing any better. Me at 19 is completely different from who I am at 23. Me at 19 was not trying to work on growing and healing and doing anything besides having fun and partying. Like, I was 19, did not have a care in the world, and I was honestly really delusional, to be honest. I was very delusional at 19 is what I've come to realize too. That kind of leads me to my next topic. I also have to be mindful that it's also not good to hyperfixate on the future. Me personally, I've realized that a lot of things that I wanted to do, I got so caught up in how I was gonna do it and what I wanted it to look like in the future that it immobilized me and made me stagnant. I didn't make progress towards doing it because I didn't want to not be how I wanted it to be. I had such a perfectionist complex with a lot of things that I was trying to do because of the fact that I was so nervous about the end goal. Just the whole thing immobilized me and made me stagnant on doing what I wanted to do because of the fact that I was so hyper fixated on the end goal. So that's something else too I'm like working on. Yes, it is good to plan in advance and have a plan for the future. It's also not good to hyper fixate and feel like you should be controlling every step of the way to get to the said end goal. What you envision for yourself is not always going to be exactly how you envisioned it once you get to that point. There's a duality to it. It's really important to be in present. I'm working on being more present in my friendships, being more present in just my overall human experience. And that's in good and bad experiences. And I feel like it really helps with being more grateful to being more conscious. It's just overall a nice thing at times. There's a duality to everything, which is why it's hard to grow without hating the process. I must say it is not easy at all, and I give props to everyone. Especially I give props to the people that are able to make it look so graceful. I would just say take it easy on yourself. Yeah, some food for thought for today. With that being said, if you've made it this far in the video, I love you. Feel free to give this video a like and a comment. Comment down below the peace sign emoji to let me know that you know that we both know that you made it this far in the video. I appreciate you watching. To all my she-lays and gays, stay positive, elevated, and lifted, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.